Subscribe to our YouTube channel for in-depth interviews of India Inc. and press the bell icon so that you do not miss our updates.
Hello and welcome to Nirmal, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Hiral Dadia. We have with us Rakesh Sharma, ED at Bajaj Auto joining in. Welcome to the show, Rakesh. Pleasure to speak to you once again. My first question coming to you is last couple of months on the back of the festive season, we were seeing a lot of pent up demand as well from September to now. Now, three things that we've taken into consideration: the pent up demand, the festive season, and then the wedding season as well. Taking all of this into consideration, do you think the numbers are telling you that this demand is something which is going to be sustainable?
Well, thanks, Hiral, for having me over. But it's important to look at a slightly longer period
Hmm.
of time if we have to derive any conclusions. And therefore, I like to look at the period of 1st October to 30th November rather than just the narrow festive period. And in this period, the reports which are sort of coming in, motorcycles is definitely a bit negative compared to the same 60 days last year.
Hmm.
So now this takes into account, whatever remnant pent-up demand is there. I won't say there is too much pent-up demand.
Hmm.
If somebody wanted to buy a bike in February, now they'll not hold on for so long. Either they cancel the decision or they would have bought it by now. So
Right.
there is a pent up demand. There is a element of preference for personal mobility over public transport, and there is the optimistic mood because of the festive, which was there, of course, last year also.
Hmm.
I would say I personally was hoping, being trying to be an optimist, that at least we would have hit the same level as last year, largely because of the pent up demand. But
Hmm.
it has not happened. It has been almost 8 to 10% decline over last year.
Right. So overall, if you have to divide between two-wheelers, three-wheelers, how are you seeing the divide from here on, especially in the domestic market? Are you expecting the November kind of sales numbers to continue, or do you think we could see some bit of an uptick that could come in? Because month on month, there has been a decline, which is clearly indicating what you exactly said.
Yeah. So for motorcycles, generally, if you take the last, let's say, 5 years data, you will see that the industry in quarter four, which is January, February, March, declines by about 8-10%,
Hmm.
or let's say about 6 to 9%, depending on the year, over quarter three, meaning a sequential decline.
Hmm.
Because quarter three, which is the period till December, October, November, December, generally has the festive period in it. And
Hmm.
if we are at that level, I would say that would be a good story. And I hope that we come at that level. Now, if we compare it with last year, we might see a very marginal growth or a very marginal. So we might see -5 to +5 kind of a range, and that is because you see last year in January, February, March, everyone was on a destocking mode because of the imminent changeover from BS4 to BS6. So there is a base which is smaller. Now, that growth should not lull us into thinking, I feel, in the industry that, it's all over, we are out of the woods,
Hmm.
and it's happy growth days again. The base effect may corrupt the actual understanding of the industry. So, if I sort of separate that out and think as to in motorcycles what it could be, I would say that it's better to compare it with the sequential one, and I'm hoping that it should be within 10% decline of quarter three, which would be an acceptable area. If it is anything more, then I think there is trouble. In three wheelers, of course, We are only at 40%. And as you know, Bajaj is by far a very strong leader in three-wheelers. So
Correct.
we always reflect the industry. So it's because still full traffic is not come back on the streets. People are, I mean, the schools are closed, for example. There is still localized lockdowns happening here and there. And, this is meant two things. One, that demand for hailing an auto rickshaw ride is lower. And
Mhm.
second, when the income of the auto rickshaw driver reduces, the finance companies become more cautious, and almost 90% of the business is finance. So it's a sort of a double whammy, and that's why we are at 40%. But if I compare 3 months back, we were at 20%.
Mhm.
So hopefully it will be a slower climb back to normalcy. It may take 6 more months, 6 to 9 more months, but depending on whether there is a third wave and another consequent lockdown or not, a lot depends on that.
Right. So clearly, we could say that for the industry as a whole, there could be concerns that, though the festive season, though the wedding season are showing, or probably would show positive signs, but what happens after that is something that we need to see.
Oh, yes, yes, of course. I don't think we can, there is no case for popping the champagne,
Mm.
definitely not. I think the festive, if anything, has told us that we need to carefully look at the next couple of months because there might still be lurking trouble. We are not yet back into a period of normalcy.
Right. And overall, Rakesh, if you see with regards to where the domestic and the export market is concerned, we've not seen that major a decline in the export. It seems, the other export markets are seeming to be more resilient versus the domestic markets. Is that something which we are looking at as well?
Yes, of course. As you know, that almost 50% of Bajaj Auto is
Mm.
production is sold overseas. So it's a very, very important area for us to keep a track of. And we have partners, our teams, and dealers, and a big operation in almost 70 countries in emerging markets of the world. I see. One thing is there in overseas markets. What happens is because you are talking of 70 countries, there is a self-inherent mitigation. One
Mm.
country does well, one doesn't do well, and they cancel each other out. India is a one very large market, and it is moving as one unit. And even before COVID, it was not as if the economy was doing extremely well. uh, of course, because we are a large country, we are a young country, we have consumption, and it's a country with a lot of depth. So therefore, we will come back out of it. There is no doubt about it. Particularly, let's say in the medium term. Now, overseas, what happens is smaller countries. Some country can be down, some country can be up. There is that self cancellation, and overall, I would say. Partly because of that factor, yes, the return to normalcy is good, and we are having some of our strongest months ever in our history in these 3 months. We broke the record in September, broke it in October. We are almost there in November, and December will be an all-time high of exports for us.
Right. So do you think the numbers that we could see in December or probably going ahead as well in the export market could somewhere help us offset the negativity in the domestic market in terms of sales?
Yeah. So I think from our side, there might be equal or gentle negativity in domestic motorcycles. Three-wheelers will certainly, like I said, they're at only they've only reached 40-45% of normal levels. So that's going to be obviously negative. And I definitely see a growth factor in exports, and being 50-55%, it will mitigate and balance out our performance. No doubt about that in the next 3 months.
Right. And overall, Rakesh, if you have to talk about the export markets as well, where is it that you're seeing higher traction? Anything that those countries are doing right, which is helping auto sales that we as a country need to adopt to see that growth from the government's perspective as well?
Well, from a government policy bit, I would say no. There is nothing spectacular I observe. It is just that we are a large and complex country. We are a very diverse country. It is not easy for to govern in a crisis like this in our country.
Mm,
And against that, if you contrast Nepal or a Bangladesh or even a Philippines or a Colombia, Argentina, these are much smaller countries and they're much less complex. So it is easier from a government administration point of view to deal with the pandemic. So I've personally, from the emerging markets, not picked up any substantive policy at a very high level policy which they're doing and which is helping them. Yes, the management of the lockdown and the return of the industry, which was very, very difficult to manage in August and September with the plethora of permissions and the multiple levels of government which were involved,
mm.
that could have been easier. But I would say that is now history. And we have reached a certain equilibrium. We are not facing any issues on the supply chain side from that end. And those things were, I would say, slightly easier in large parts of Latin America and South Asia, Middle East, etc.
Right. And Rakesh, very lastly, from the passenger vehicle segment, a lot of commentary from the OEMs that did come in last month was with regards to, production disruptions, and on the back of which there was a mismatch between demand and supply. Anything of that sort that you are witnessing as well, taking into consideration the current scenario, because the moment you have a case, even at the factory, again, you need to stop production, or something going on that front.
No, Hiral, now I must say demand and supply, at least I can speak for Bajaj Auto, are quite
Mhm.
well matched. And we are not facing a shortage because we are not being able to produce. But having said that, I must say it's taking a humongous effort to manage because, like you said, there could be a COVID case, and it's not just about us, it is about the transport systems
Correct.
and it is about vendors, and
Mm,
then they have to shift the production from one vendor to another and display a very high level of agility. The only real infrastructure issue which we are now facing is on the export front, which because of which we have not been able to actually fulfill our orders. Even last month, having done a record, we could have done 20% at least more.
wow.
And that because all the containers are getting sucked out into China because there's a revival in China. And
Mm,
it's very, very difficult right now to have a very smooth supply line from the
mm.
plant to the ship.
Right. So overall, I think yes, from the export front, we do see some bit of disruptions, but if that goes smooth, automatically sales and performance could be better. Thank you, Rakesh, so much for joining us on the show. It was a pleasure to speak to you. Good insights, good comments that we picked up from you as well. Hopefully, this festive season, this revival sustains for all of us and for all businesses across. Thank you once again. Hope you enjoyed the conversation and stay safe. Speak soon.
Thank you, Hiral. Thank you.
Thanks.